Jimmy Nakayama was born in Rexburg, Idaho on November 19th, 1943, to Japanese parents. Growing up as a Japanese American in the shadow of World War II created many challenges for Jimmy growing up. An early school friend of Jimmy's recalled some of the challenges that Jimmy faced during the fifth grade.
The teacher asked the class what was wrong with Jimmy. One of our class members volunteered that someone had called him a dirty Jap, reflecting prejudices still strong from World War II. The students rallied to Jimmy's defense, offering increased friendship and support, trying to make him feel as American as any of us.
After completing the fifth grade, Jimmy's family decided to move 15 miles to the south to Rigby, Idaho, where he embarked on a new chapter of his life. In Rigby, he not only excelled in academics, but also distinguished himself in sports, particularly as a well-liked baseball player at Rigby High School. His athletic prowess and warm personality endeared him to the local community. It was also during his time in Rigby that Jimmy made a decision that mirrored the actions of his father and uncle during World War II, both of whom had served in combat roles in Europe during that conflict and had distinguished themselves on the battlefield. Jimmy decided that he would follow in their footsteps by joining the United States military. After graduating from high school, Jimmy married Trudy Olson, who he had known since childhood, and then became a part of the Idaho National Guard, eventually rising to the rank of second lieutenant. While still putting down roots in Rigby, Jimmy made the decision that he would give up his rank in the National Guard in order to serve in the regular army at the outbreak of the Vietnam War. Jimmy's first tour of duty in Vietnam began in August of 1965, and as a private first class, Jimmy entered the La Drang Valley on November 14, 1965, with the 1st Engineer Battalion of the 7th Cavalry Division. The ensuing Battle of La Drang saw the division stuck fighting the North Vietnamese for the next 4 days. During the Battle of La Drang, Jimmy was mortally wounded on the 15th of November when a can of napalm was accidentally dropped on Jimmy's position. News correspondent Joseph Galloway was there when Jimmy was hit. Galloway and Nakayama first met in the La Drang Valley in Vietnam, where Nakayama had proudly shared the news that his daughter Nikki was to be born that very day in Idaho. Galloway later recalled,
Lieutenant Charlie Hastings, the Air Force Forward Observer, was screaming into his mic, "Pull up! Pull up!" The second plane pulled up. That left the 2 cans of napalm lobbling end over end towards us. Greg Dillon buried his face in my shoulder. Later, he would tell me he had heard if napalm was coming in, you should protect your eyes. The 2 cans went right over our heads and impacted no more than 20 yards from us. The jellied gasoline spreading out and flaming up, going away from us. That 20 yards saved our lives, but through the blazing fire I could see 2 men, 2 Americans, dancing in that fire. I jumped to my feet. So did medic Tommy Burlisle. Burlisle was shot in the head by a sniper before he could reach the scene. I charged on in, and someone was yelling, "Get this man's feet!" I reached down and grabbed the ankles of a horribly burned soldier. They crumbled, and the skin and flesh, now cooked, rubbed off. I could feel his bare ankle bones in the palms of my hands. We carried him to the aid station. Later, I would learn that his name was Jimmy D. Nakayama of Rigby, Idaho. His wife, Trudy, had given birth to their first child, a daughter named Nikki, on November 7th.
According to an interview that Joe Galloway gave with the Washington Post years later, Galloway recalled that his encounter with Jimmy towards the end of his life was particularly painful. Jimmy succumbed to his injuries the same day that the Battle of Ladreng finally ended on November 17th, 1965. At the time, Jimmy was just 2 days shy of his 22nd birthday when he was killed, becoming the first casualty from Idaho during the first battle of the Vietnam War. Jimmy Nakayama's journey from a young boy who faced discrimination to a soldier who made the ultimate sacrifice during the Vietnam War is a testament to the complex and often bittersweet interplay between identity, patriotism, and the human spirit. His story symbolizes the challenges and sacrifices of countless individuals who have navigated the ever-shifting landscapes of cultural identity and national loyalty. Jimmy Nakayama, the first casualty from Idaho in the Vietnam War, represents not just one man's struggle, but a broader narrative of resilience in the face of adversity.